Lena had delivered food to every kind of locked door in the city, but never to a palace number that answered the phone with, "You are speaking to the king." Her hands shook as she stood over the boy on the wet sidewalk, the smell of rain, exhaust, and fried noodles clinging to her jacket. The boy lay motionless on the pavement, neon reflections pooling in the water around his body, his skin so cold that when she touched his neck, it felt like she was pressing her fingers to stone. Somewhere a bus hissed to a stop, music thumped from a bar, but here, beside her overturned delivery bike, everything felt suddenly too quiet. "I found him outside the old arcade on 5th, she managed, fighting the tightness in her throat. "He just collapsed. He's not waking up. He has your crest on his ring, I think. A crown with a red moon." She looked again at the silver ring on his limp hand, the red stone catching every passing headlight. Everyone in the city knew that symbol. It was carved into the iron fences of the palace district, stamped on the coins they paid their taxes with, painted on the warning signs that divided human streets from vampire territory. On the other end of the line, there was a silence so heavy she could almost hear it. Then the voice returned, low and controlled. "Do not move him. Stay where you are." "What is your name?" They said the vampire king, Adrian, had ruled since before the river was bridged, that he did not waste words and never spoke to humans without a reason. Yet now his voice was in her ear, steady as stone, while his son lay unconscious at her feet, with rain collecting in his hair. But before we continue, I want to invite you to something very special. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories. And comment below which city you're watching from. Now, let's continue. "Lena," she whispered. "My name is Lena. I'm just a delivery girl. I was bringing noodles to the shop across the street when he almost got hit by a car." The memory flashed sharp. The screech of brakes, the blinding headlights, the driver cursing as he swerved and sped away. The boy had stumbled from the alley like someone sleepwalking, eyes unfocused, then folded to the ground right in front of her front wheel. "No one else stopped," she added, hearing the bitterness in her own voice as the rain tapped against the plastic food box on her bike. The boy made a faint sound, a rough breath that dragged her back down to the ground. Lena dropped to her knees beside him, the concrete soaking through her jeans, rough and icy under her skin. Up close, she saw how young he looked, dark lashes resting against cheeks that were too pale even for a vampire, lips tinged with blue instead of their usual soft wine color. A thin line of blood traced from his nose to his mouth, bright red against his skin. She wiped it away with her sleeve, the fabric scratching over his cool face, and whispered, "Hey, can you hear me?" The faint smell of iron touched the air, mixing with wet asphalt. "I am sending my guard," Adrian said in her ear. She could hear movement now on his side of the line, hurried steps, the rustle of coats, a door slamming, a sharp order in a language she did not understand. "Do not leave him, Lena. Whatever happens, do not let anyone else touch him. Do you understand?" There was something new in his voice, something that did not fit the legends. Fear, not for the city, not for the palace, but for the boy whose cold hand lay open on the ground. The sound of it settled in her chest like a weight she had never meant to carry. Lena swallowed, tasting the metallic tang of rainwater on her lips. "I understand," she said. She looked around. People hurried along the far side of the street with umbrellas up, heads down, pretending not to see the girl kneeling beside the fallen prince. Their shoes splashed through puddles. Their eyes slid away as if pulled by invisible strings. Everyone recognized the crest on that ring. Everyone knew that when the Vampire King's symbol glowed in the night, the safest thing to do was act blind. Even the street seemed to hold its breath, the flickering sign of the arcade buzzing softly above them. The boy's fingers twitched. Without thinking, Lena wrapped her hands around his. It was like holding a piece of ice, but under the surface she felt a faint tremor, a heartbeat struggling against something she couldn't see. "You're okay," she murmured. "Help is coming. Just stay with me, all right?" Her own heart hammered hard enough to make her feel lightheaded. For the first time, she wondered if there was something else in the air besides rain, something pressing down on them both, making the night feel heavier than it should. His eyes opened a crack. They glowed softly red under the street lamp, more ember than flame. Fear rose up in Lena's chest. Every story her mother had told her about staying away from vampire affairs came rushing back. Never look them in the eyes, never step beyond the border stones, never forget that we are not the same, Lena. But what she saw in his gaze was not hunger or cold superiority. It was raw confusion and pain, like a child waking from a nightmare and not knowing where he was. "Who are you?" he rasped. His voice was little more than air, cool and shaky on her wrist. She leaned closer and caught a faint scent under the rain and city smells. Iron, yes, but something floral too, like crushed jasmine from the tiny garden behind the noodle shop. It didn't match the stories of ash and grave earth. It smelled like someone who was supposed to be alive. "I'm Lena," she said again, wanting him to hold on to at least that. "You collapsed. I called your father. He's sending people for you." She hesitated, then added quietly, "You're the prince, aren't you?" His lids fluttered, and something like guilt flickered across his face. "I'm not supposed to be here," he whispered. "Not outside the border. It's wrong." His fingers tightened weakly around hers, and for an instant his hand felt less cold, as if her warmth had slipped under his skin. "You shouldn't have called him," he added, a shadow passing through his eyes that she did not understand. The words left a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the weather. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed from the mouth of the alley, faster than normal, too precise for any drunk leaving the bars. Lena's head snapped up. 3 figures in dark coats were walking toward them, their steps splashing through puddles without hesitation. The street lamp light caught their eyes in a way that made her stomach knot. There was a sharp, unnatural gleam there, like light on the edge of a blade. The sounds of the city seemed to pull back, leaving only the slap of their shoes and the soft drip of water from roofs. "Lena," the king's voice said suddenly, cutting through the wet night. It had lost its smooth calm. "They are not mine." Goosebumps crawled up her arms. The 3 figures stopped a few meters away and looked down, not at her, but at the unconscious boy and the crest on his ring. The air felt heavier, colder, as if the rain itself were waiting. The prince's fingers twitched again in her grasp, a tiny plea that made her throat tighten. The tallest one smiled, lips pulling back just enough to show the hint of pointed teeth. "We will take him from here, human," he said, his voice smooth and polite, like a practiced waiter. "You have done your part." He extended a gloved hand toward the prince, as if reaching for a forgotten jacket. Behind him, the other 2 shifted subtly, blocking the street in a way that made every path around them suddenly seem too narrow. The smell of their presence, cool and metallic, curled into the damp air. Lena tightened her grip on the boy's hand until her fingers ached. "I thought you said your guard was coming," she whispered into the phone, her mouth dry. The prince's fingers twitched again, as if his body recognized danger even through unconsciousness. "They are," Adrian answered, and there was no hiding the fury now. "Lena, listen to me. Those men serve the High Council, not the Crown. If they take my son, he will not come back. You must not let them have him." The last sentence landed in her chest like a weight she had never expected to carry. All her life, Lena had been told to keep her head down, deliver the food, collect the coins, avoid the palace district, pretend not to see what happens in the shadows. She thought of the cramped apartment she shared with her mother, of the extra jobs she took to pay for medicine, of the nights she had pedaled past the palace gates and wondered what kind of world lay behind them. She looked at the boy on the ground, at the ring that glowed faintly on his finger, at the 3 vampires whose patience was visibly thinning as the rain slid down their coats. "Move," the tallest one said, his voice dropping its pleasant edge. "That is not a request." The words pressed against her skin like cold hands, heavy and commanding. Every instinct she had screamed at her to get out of the way, to live, to pretend this had never happened. The smell of wet stone and fear filled her nose, making it hard to breathe. The prince's hand trembled once more in hers, a faint, desperate movement. Instead, Lena drew in a shaky breath that tasted like rain and iron and terror, and did the thing no one in her caste was ever supposed to do. She rose just enough to put herself directly between the strangers and the prince, met the tall vampire's eyes, and heard her own voice say, trembling but clear, "No, His father told me not to let anyone touch him. If you want him, you'll have to go through me. In that small, wet street, with the city still pretending not to see, the future of two worlds quietly tilted around a girl in a delivery jacket who refused to move. The tallest vampire blinked slowly, as if recalibrating what kind of human would dare stand up to him. Rain slid off the brim of his dark coat, tapping rhythmically onto the puddles around Lena's feet. Behind him, the other two exchanged glances, startled not by her defiance, but by the fact that she had spoken directly to Councilman. The air grew colder, as if the night itself were waiting for someone to make the first mistake. Lena's heartbeat pounded in her ears, each thud loud enough that she wondered if they could hear it too. She kept her body angled over the prince, shielding him with her own. Her soaked delivery jacket clung to her arms and shoulders, heavy with rain, but she refused to step back. She sniffed in a sharp breath, the scent of wet metal and asphalt filling her lungs, willing her voice not to crack. He's hurt. He needs help. I'm not letting anyone touch him until his father gets here. We are the council's physicians, the tall one said, every word wrapped in a cold calm. His condition concerns the entire kingdom, not only the crown. Step aside. His glove dripped water as he lowered his hand toward the boy again, fingers elegant, steady, and absolutely certain she would yield. His confidence pressed down on her like a physical weight. Before she could respond, the prince's body jerked violently beneath her hands. A strangled gasp escaped him, his back arching as if an invisible rope had tugged him upward. Lena grabbed his shoulders, the fabric of his shirt cold and slick under her fingers. His eyes shot open, glowing an intense blood-red hue that reflected the neon sign of the arcade. The glow flickered wildly, like a lantern shaking in a storm. The councilman stiffened. The tall one hissed, "It's starting." A wave of icy air burst from the prince's chest, scattering droplets of rain around Lena like shards of glass. She felt the cold slice across her cheeks, biting into her skin. The prince gasped again, this time more violently, and his fingers clamped around her wrist with surprising strength. She felt his pulse racing, too fast, too frantic, like a heart trying to outrun something inside it. "What's happening to him?" Lena cried, pulling him closer. His skin felt like it was freezing from the inside, but she held on anyway. She could smell the faint coppery tang of blood mixing with the rain, though none seemed to spill. "You said you're physicians. Help him." But the councilmen didn't move. They watched, coldly, calculatingly. The tallest one said, "We cannot interfere until the metamorphosis stabilizes. If we do, the reaction will—" He didn't finish. His eyes flicked to her hands. "Human touch is making it worse." Lena froze. The prince trembled violently against her, breath shallow and desperate. His grip tightened until pain shot up her arm, but she didn't pull away. She looked at the councilman, then back at the prince. Something inside her said they were wrong, or lying, or both. "He asked for me," she whispered. "He woke up holding on to me, not you." The prince's glowing eyes focused weakly on her. "Don't. Let go," he rasped, each word scraping the cold air between them. His breath fogged white in the rain, unnatural and frightening. "Please, Lena, don't." The tallest councilman's calm facade cracked for the first time. His jaw tightened, his nostrils flaring with sudden impatience. "Human sentiment has no place here," he snapped. "Move." "No," Lena said again, softer this time, but solid as stone. A snarl rippled through the air, sharp and sudden, followed instantly by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. A figure had landed behind the councilman. No footsteps, no warning, just a blur of movement and the rush of cold wind. The councilman spun around. Lena felt the air shift before she saw him. A tall silhouette stepped forward through the rain, black cloak trailing behind him like a moving shadow. His boots splashed through puddles without hesitation, each stride purposeful. Street lamps flickered as he passed beneath them, as if dimming in deference. When he lifted his head, Lena saw eyes like sharp crimson glass, steady, focused, and burning with controlled fury. The vampire king had arrived. Adrian's voice cut through the wet night, low enough to shake something deep inside her chest. "Step away from my son." There was no shouting, no theatrics, just a command so absolute that the rain itself seemed to pause in midair. The councilman bowed, stiff and resentful. "Your Majesty, we only—" "You disobeyed a direct order," Adrian said. The glow in his eyes intensified, illuminating the raindrops between them. "I told you she was not to be touched. I told you no one was to approach him." "He is undergoing metamorphosis," the tall one insisted. "If we don't secure him, the consequences could be—" Adrian stepped forward, and the councilman fell silent. The king's presence radiated authority the way fire radiated heat. He knelt beside Lena, the scent of cold night air and some faint metallic undertone brushing her senses. Up close, his features were impossibly symmetrical, carved with a precision that made her breath catch, yet they were softened by something unmistakably human in this moment. Fear for his child. "Thank you," he said quietly, his eyes flicking to hers. "For staying with him." Lena stiffened. She had never imagined the Vampire King would speak to her with any warmth, much less gratitude. She swallowed hard, the rain running down her face like tears that weren't hers. "He was alone," she said. "No one stopped. I couldn't leave him." Adrian nodded once, as if confirming something he had already suspected. Then he placed his hand on his son's chest. The boy gasped, the icy energy around him crackling like static. Adrian closed his eyes, expression tightening with effort. For a moment, Lena felt warmth radiate from his palm, a deep, steady heat that pushed back the chilling air around the prince. The boy's breathing steadied. His grip on Lena's wrist softened. The red glow in his eyes dimmed to a faint ember. "He's stabilizing," Adrian murmured. Relief touched his voice, so subtle it was almost invisible. "He'll be all right." Lena felt her own breath shudder with relief. Her hands were numb, her clothes soaked, her knees aching against the concrete. But none of it mattered. The prince had stopped trembling. His skin no longer felt like ice. His heartbeat slowed to something steady, something normal. Then Adrian opened his eyes and said something that sent a chill down her spine. This shouldn't have happened. Not to him. Not now. The councilmen exchanged stiff glances. "Your Majesty," the tall one said carefully. "The Queen will want to know." Adrian turned sharply. "The Queen must not hear of this." Lena's head snapped up. The Queen. She'd heard rumors about her. Powerful, distant, ruthless, in a way even the king was not. But why would she be kept in the dark about her own son? The tall councilman bowed slightly, reluctantly. "As you command." Lena looked from Adrian to the prince to the councilman, confusion tightening in her chest. "What's going on?" she whispered. "Why was he out here alone? Why would the Queen—" Adrian cut her off with a raised hand, his eyes returning to her. Their crimson glow softened just enough to look almost human. "Lena, I need you to come with us," he said. "Your involvement in this is no longer accidental." Her breath caught. Rain dripped from her lashes as she stared at him. "Come with you? To the palace?" "Yes," he said. "Tonight, right now." The prince stirred beside her, whispering her name again with fragile clarity. And in that moment, Lena realized two things at once. The prince wasn't just asking for help. He was remembering her, and she had no idea why. Lena had never ridden in a car so silent. The city rushed past the tinted windows in streaks of white and blue light. But inside the vehicle, everything felt muffled, as if the world outside no longer had permission to reach her. She sat between two royal guards who didn't speak or look at her, their uniforms dark enough to blend into the leather seats. The air smelled faintly of steel and something crisp, like pine needles after rain. Her damp clothes clung to her skin, and she kept her hands pressed together to keep them from trembling. Across from her, Prince Elias lay with his head resting on Adrian's lap. The king held him with a steadiness that looked both practiced and desperate. Elias's skin still carried a pale sheen, but he no longer shook. His breaths were slow, warm enough to fog the window when the car turned slightly, and his face rolled toward the glass. Lena kept watching him, drawn to the small movements, the twitch of his fingers, the subtle rise of his chest, as if those tiny signs of life grounded her in the chaotic night. Adrian's gaze fixed on her every few seconds, sharp but unreadable. She felt his attention like a spotlight, examining, measuring, trying to understand why his son had clung to a human girl in the middle of the street. Every time their eyes met, Lena looked down at her hands, feeling heat rise to her cheeks despite the chill in the car. When the car slowed, she looked up and saw the palace gates drifting open. Black iron bars etched with crescent moons and roses parted without a sound, revealing a long path illuminated by white lanterns. The pavement glistened from the rain, reflecting the shape of the towering structure ahead. The palace didn't look like the stories she'd heard. It wasn't Gothic or menacing. It was elegant. Smooth stone walls, tall windows, and vines with night-blooming flowers trailing across balconies. The air changed as they passed through the gates, becoming cooler, denser with the scent of jasmine and something faintly mineral. Lena's throat tightened. She didn't belong here. She could feel it in every breath. Her worn sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished floor when the guards helped her out of the car, and she instinctively tucked her hands into her jacket to hide the trembling. Inside, the corridors glowed with warm, steady light. The walls were lined with paintings of past rulers, calm faces, sharp eyes, robes flowing like shadows. She kept her gaze straight ahead as she followed Adrian, but her senses were on fire. The smell of polished stone, the whisper of guards' footsteps behind her, the faint hum of energy in the air. It was all overwhelming. Adrian carried Elias in his arms now, the prince's head resting against his chest. Lena noticed the way the king tightened his hold every time Elias stirred, as though afraid the boy would slip away again. She wondered how many people ever saw him like this, not as a king, but as a father. They stopped at a wide set of doors carved with silver moons. Adrian nodded to the guards. "Prepare the chamber. No one enters without my command." The guards bowed and vanished down the hall. Lena hesitated at the threshold. Should I wait somewhere else?" she asked softly. Adrian looked over his shoulder, his eyes glowing faintly. "No, you come with me." His voice held no room for argument. The room beyond was circular, with white stone walls and a platform of smooth, dark marble at its center. Soft light rose from narrow crystal sconces embedded in the floor, creating a glow that made the air shimmer faintly. Adrian laid Elias onto the marble platform, and Lena stepped closer, unable to stop herself. The prince's eyes opened for a moment, muddled, unfocused, but searching. When they found her, something gentle flickered there. He breathed her name, barely audible. "Lena." Her heart clenched. She knelt beside him, careful not to touch him unless Adrian allowed it. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're safe. You're home." Elias's lips parted as if to answer, but the words died on his tongue. His chest rose sharply, then shuddered. Adrian placed a hand on his son's forehead, and Lena saw a faint red glow pulse beneath the king's palm. It spread like soft waves through Elias's skin, warming the air around them. "What's happening to him?" Lena asked, voice shaking despite her effort to stay calm. Adrian didn't answer at first. He kept his hand on Elias. His eyes narrowed in concentration. The red glow pulsed again, stronger this time. Then he exhaled quietly. He is entering his first metamorphosis. It happens only once in our kind's lifetime. But Elias is early, too early. Something forced it before he was ready. Lena frowned. Forced it? By what? Adrian's jaw tightened. A toxin. One used only by the High Council. Her breath caught. Those men from the street? Yes. Adrian's gaze shifted to her, heavy with something she couldn't read. And you kept him alive long enough for me to reach him. Lena swallowed hard. She didn't feel brave. She felt like someone who had stumbled into a war she didn't understand. Why me? She whispered. Why would he react to me like that? Adrian hesitated. He looked down at Elias, then back at her. Because he knew your name before he heard it. Lena's mind stalled. That doesn't make sense. I've never met him. Not in this life, Adrian said quietly. Her pulse stumbled. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back slightly and motioned for her to place her hand on Elias's. Lena hesitated only a second before doing it. The moment her skin touched his, the marble beneath them trembled with a faint hum. Elias's breathing eased, and the glow beneath his chest steadied, no longer flickering violently. Adrian watched them with a mixture of relief and something deeper. something wary. You see, he murmured. His body recognizes you. That is why he sought you out, even in pain. Lena felt her heart thud painfully. The prince's fingers curled weakly around hers, and she felt warmth, real warmth, spread up her arm. But before she could speak, Adrian said the sentence that changed everything. The High Council will come for you next. Lena's breath froze in her chest. For me? Why? Because now they know, Adrian whispered, and they fear what you might become to him. Lena did not sleep. She sat beside the marble platform while the palace settled into a muffled quiet around her. Beyond the chamber, she sometimes heard distant doors or passing steps, but here there was only the low hum under the floor and Elias's breathing. Her clothes had mostly dried, yet her body still remembered the rain and the weight of him in her arms. Every time his fingers twitched in his sleep, she felt it. Adrian stayed too. He stood near the narrow window, watching night fade into a pale strip over the gardens. His eyes no longer burned bright, but when they moved to his son, a tired warmth passed through them that did not fit the stories at all. The room smelled of stone and metal, with a faint trace of jasmine from outside. Lena rubbed her thumb over the back of Elias's hand, feeling the faint pulse under his cool skin. You said they'll come for me, she murmured. The council. Why? I'm nobody. I don't have power or money. I don't even have a bike anymore. The attempt at humor fell flat. Adrian turned toward her. They don't care who you are, he said. They care what you are to him. His gaze dropped to their joined hands. In our world, that can topple more than coins or titles. Lena frowned. And what am I to him? He hesitated before answering. There is a rare bond we call the echo, he said slowly. Once in a long era, a vampire of royal blood and a human are pulled toward each other in ways that do not begin in this life. Recognition without reason. When our kind enters metamorphosis, that echo grows loud enough to drag us past fear, past rules. Tonight it dragged my son into the street. Her first instinct was to reject it, but the memory of Elias whispering her name on the pavement pressed against her doubt. I've never met him, she insisted. I grew up over a laundry shop. My mother kept me away from your borders. There's nothing special about me. Memory doesn't live only in the mind, Adrian said. It lives in habits, in the faces we can't ignore. For months, Elias has dreamed of a girl on a bike. He would wake saying a name he had never heard. When the toxin forced his metamorphosis, he followed that pull. The word toxin made her chest tighten. Those men in the street, council agents, Adrian replied. They prefer our world frozen. An echo threatens that. If a prince anchors to a human, he listens differently. Laws bend. Old promises tremble. They will not allow that easily. A silence fell. Lena looked at Elias's resting face. Asleep, he looked younger, less like a prince, and more like any boy frowning at some distant thought. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. Nor did he, Adrian answered. The door opened with a soft creak. A tall woman entered, framed by warm light. Her dark gown flowed around her, and a crown of twisted black hair caught tiny red stones. A cool perfume reached Lena, sharp like winter air. The queen. Her eyes went straight to Elias. For one unguarded heartbeat, worry flared across her face. Then her expression smoothed. What happened? She asked. Voice calm but tight. An early metamorphosis, Adrian said. Triggered from outside. I stabilized him. The queen's gaze shifted to Lena, taking in the jacket, the shoes, the faint smell of food. And the human? She found him in the city and kept him alive until I arrived, Adrian replied. That will not ease the council, the queen said. They already felt a disturbance. They summoned us at dawn, claiming the bond lines shook. Now they will see a stranger standing at the center of it. They will see my son alive, Adrian answered. Lena's pulse hammered. They think I did something wrong? She asked quietly. I only helped him. In their eyes, that's enough, the queen said. There was no cruelty, only weary clarity. She moved to Elias's side, fingers hovering just above his cheek. He looks small like this, she murmured. He never did as a child. A deep bell tolled through the palace, the sound rolling up through the floor. The queen straightened, listening, Dawn, she said. They are here. Adrian's eyes darkened. They were told to wait until summoned. They never do, she answered. Knuckles rapped sharply on the door. A guard's voice came from the hall, strained and formal. Your Majesties, the High Council has arrived. They have invoked the ancient clause and demand that the human girl be brought before them at once. Lena's mouth went dry. Her fingers tightened around Elias's. To her shock, his hand squeezed back weakly, as if some part of him had heard. Adrian looked at her then, his crimson eyes heavy with choices. It seems, he said softly, that your night on that street was only the beginning, Lena. The council chamber was nothing like Lena expected. She had imagined a courtroom, a throne room, something grand and echoing. Instead, the room was circular and stone-walled, dimly lit by rings of pale blue flame that flickered without warmth. The air smelled of minerals and old dust, and something colder, like the inside of a freezer. 6 high-backed chairs formed a half-moon around a central platform. 5 of them were already occupied. The council members watched her enter with unreadable faces. Their eyes glowed faintly, each a different shade: silver, amber, ice blue, wine red, and pale green. No warmth, no welcome, just evaluation. The 6th chair remained empty, though Lena felt that whoever it belonged to was not someone she wanted to meet. Adrian walked beside her, a steady presence she could feel even without looking. His steps were firm, controlled, but Lena could sense tension in the way his cloak brushed the floor. The Queen followed silently, her expression the perfect mask of royalty, serene, distant, impossible to read. Guards lined the walls, still as statues. Lena stepped onto the central platform. Her sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished stone, and the sound echoed in the room like a mistake she shouldn't have made. Her palms were damp, her throat tight. She forced herself to breathe through her nose, taking in the cold, metallic scent of the chamber. A councilman with silver eyes leaned forward. "Human," he said, voice calm and crisp. "State your name." "Lena," she managed. "Lena Ortiz." Her voice sounded small but clear. She kept her chin up, though her heart thudded high in her chest. "You found Prince Elias collapsed in a public street," the amber-eyed woman said. "Explain why you approached him instead of notifying authorities and keeping your distance, as the law requires." Lena swallowed hard. He almost got hit by a car. No one else stopped. I couldn't leave him there." She felt her hands tremble. "He wasn't breathing right." The wine-red-eyed councilman raised a brow. "You touched him." "Yes," she said. "He was freezing." "You touched him and induced a resonance." His tone was mild, but the air tightened. "I don't know what that means." "It means," the ice-blue-eyed woman said, "that his bond lines reacted to your presence. That is not normal. Not for him. Not for any prince." Lena felt her stomach drop. "I didn't do anything. He reached for me." A murmur rippled through the council, like the shift of leaves before a storm. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in her place. Don't leave the video because what comes next will give you chills. The Queen's voice cut in smoothly. "This interrogation is unnecessary." The girl acted with compassion. "Elias survived because of her." The silver-eyed councilman replied, "Survival is not the point." His gaze slid to Lena. The echo awakened. His voice dropped lower. "And where an echo awakens, consequences follow." Lena's pulse hammered. "Please," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I don't understand what's happening. I don't want to cause trouble for your kingdom. I just did what any decent person would do." "Incorrect," the green-eyed councilwoman said. "Most humans would have run." Her words stung because they were true. Lena remembered the passers-by refusing to look, choosing safety over humanity. Adrian stepped forward, placing himself subtly between Lena and the council. "She did nothing wrong," he said. His voice resonated through the chamber like a distant thunderclap. "My son survived because she stayed with him." "And because she touched him," the amber-eyed woman added pointedly. Lena flinched. The silver-eyed councilman rose, robes whispering against the stone. "Your Majesty," he said, "with respect, the bond between a human and a royal threatens the stability of our traditions." Elias's metamorphosis was forced to begin early, a toxin that reacts only under emotional duress, and his duress was triggered by her. That is a lie, Adrian snapped. No, the councilman said quietly. It is a fact. The Queen's eyes narrowed dangerously. You accuse her of harming him? Not directly, but she is now tied to him. The councilman's gaze sharpened toward Lena. And that makes her a liability, whether she wishes it or not. Lena felt cold all over. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know your son existed. And yet he called your name before he learned it, the councilman murmured. Her breath caught. Adrian's expression changed just slightly, the smallest flicker of something like fear crossing his features. The wine-red-eyed councilman asked, Human, when Elias touched you, what did you feel? Lena thought back. The wet street, his cold fingers, his trembling grip, the way her heart had jolted. I felt like he was afraid and alone, and that he didn't want to die. The room went unnaturally still. The silver-eyed councilman leaned closer, voice softening into something more dangerous. Did you feel anything of yourself reflected in him? Lena hesitated. Her breath slowed. Her palms dampened again. She remembered the moment on the street when Elias opened his eyes, when she felt a strange tug in her chest, a sensation like déjà vu mixed with fear, recognition without memory. She hadn't wanted to admit it, even to herself. Adrian whispered. Lena. She looked up and saw caution in his eyes, warning her not to speak a truth they weren't ready to weaponize. Lena steadied her breath. I felt scared, she said simply. That's all. A few council members exchanged frustrated looks, not convinced, but unable to argue without evidence. The silver-eyed councilman finally exhaled. Very well. Then we propose a solution. Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine. You will remain in the palace until we complete a full investigation. What? Lena whispered. I can't just stay here. My mom, my work. It is not a request, he replied. Your presence is now a matter of national security. Adrian stepped forward sharply. She is under my protection, not yours. Protection, the councilman echoed, implies possession. Lena's heart dropped. Which, he continued, you cannot claim unless you intend to declare the human as part of the royal family. The chamber exploded in whispers. The Queen stiffened. Adrian's breath caught. Lena felt the floor tilt beneath her. The silver-eyed councilman smiled faintly. We await your decision, Your Majesty. Lena walked behind Adrian through a corridor that seemed too long, too bright, too silent. Her footsteps echoed in a rhythm she couldn't control, each one betraying how unsteady she felt. The council chamber door closed behind them with a deep, stone-heavy thud. It sounded final, like something irreversible had just begun. She tried to breathe normally, filling her lungs with the clean, cool air of the palace, but it only made the tightness in her chest sharper. The hall smelled faintly of polished marble and something floral drifting from unseen vents. She pressed her fingers together to hide the tremble. You didn't answer them, she said softly. Adrian slowed. The glow in his eyes had dimmed since the confrontation, but the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable. There was nothing to answer, he said. That's not what they think. He stopped walking. When he turned toward her, she was struck again by the sheer presence he carried. Controlled, heavy, like gravity itself bent slightly around him. Lena, he said quietly, I will not allow them to twist a tradition into a weapon against you. Their demand was political theater, nothing more. Except they meant it, she whispered. They think you're going to claim I'm connected to your family. That's insane. I'm a delivery girl. I don't belong here. Adrian's jaw tightened. You belong here because you saved my son. That's not the same as belonging. Her voice cracked. I don't want to be part of a bond or echo or whatever you call it. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to finish my shift. The slightest hint of a smile pulled at one corner of Adrian's mouth. Not mocking, but sad. Life rarely asks permission before changing. They resumed walking. Servants passed them, bowing silently. Lena felt their glances lingering, a human, drenched in fear and confusion, walking beside the king. Her face heated. She wished she could disappear into the polished floor. They reached a quieter wing of the palace. The light dimmed, becoming warmer, softer. The scent of jasmine drifted through again, stronger this time. Adrian guided her into a smaller chamber lined with stone shelves and a long window overlooking the gardens. Night-blooming flowers glowed faintly beyond the glass, their petals reflecting moonlight. A healer stood at a table, arranging vials of deep red liquid. She looked up as they entered. Her gentle eyes softened at the sight of Lena. "Your hands," she said. "Sit." Lena glanced down. Her knuckles were scraped raw from kneeling in the street, small cuts drying into thin lines. She hadn't even noticed. She sat at the table, and the healer began applying a cool balm that smelled of mint and crushed herbs. Adrian watched from a distance, arms crossed, gaze distant but vigilant. Lena could sense he was listening to every sound in the palace, alert in ways she could not see. The healer finished and stepped away. She should rest, she told Adrian. But before Lena could stand, a guard entered, bowing low. "Your Majesty, Prince Elias is awake." Lena's breath caught. Adrian's expression cracked for the first time since dawn. Relief, sharp and undeniable, flickered through him. "Take me to him," he said. Then he paused and looked at Lena. "Come with us." She followed him through another series of hallways until they reached the metamorphosis chamber again. The marble platform glowed softly, and Elias sat on its edge, pale but conscious. His dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, and faint color returned to his lips. His eyes, still a muted ember, lifted when he saw her. "Lena," he said, voice quiet but clear. Every fear she had carried since dawn tugged at her chest when he said her name, as if acknowledging something she wasn't ready to face. She stepped toward him but stopped a few feet away, afraid to make things worse. "How do you feel?" she asked. He rubbed his temples, like the world is too loud and too bright. His gaze softened. "But I knew you were here." Lena's stomach flipped. She opened her mouth to speak, but Adrian moved closer instead. "Elias, the council has intervened. They claim Lena's presence triggered your metamorphosis." Elias's brow furrowed. "That's not true. They want her held in the palace," Adrian continued, "possibly under council authority." Elias pushed himself to his feet, though he wavered slightly. The marble hummed under him, reacting to his unstable energy. "She's not a prisoner." His voice sharpened. "She saved me. They can't touch her." "Elias," Adrian warned, "you're not fully stabilized. Your emotions affect the bond." "I don't care." Elias stepped toward Lena, stopping only when he stood just within arm's reach. Lena felt the warm pull in her chest again, the same strange echo she'd been trying to deny. He lowered his voice. "I followed your voice in the dark." Lena's breath trembled. "Elias, I don't know why," he whispered. "I just knew I had to find you." The air thickened. Adrian looked away, giving them a moment that wasn't entirely private, but wasn't royal business either. Elias lifted a shaking hand, as if wanting to touch her face, but afraid he would overstep. "I don't want them to use you to control me." Lena swallowed, throat tight. "I don't want that either, but I also don't know what any of this means." He lowered his hand slowly. "Neither do I." Before either could say more, the Queen entered, her expression tighter than earlier. "You two need to hear this," she said. "The council has made a formal decision." Elias straightened. Adrian stepped forward. Lena felt her stomach sink. The Queen's eyes swept over all three of them before she spoke. "They have voted," she said, voice steady. "Lena must be escorted to the inner sanctum at sundown, where they intend to test the bond." Lena froze. "Test? How?" Elias's face drained of color. Adrian inhaled sharply. The Queen answered plainly. "They want to see what happens when they try to break it." Lena's legs weakened beneath her, and she gripped the edge of the marble platform to steady herself. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls had shifted closer. The scent of jasmine from the window mixed with the colder smell of stone, creating a dizzying contrast that made her breath stutter. "Break it?" she whispered. "Break what? I didn't agree to anything." "They don't care about agreement," Adrian said, voice low and tense. "The council sees bonds as threats unless they can control them." He moved closer to Elias, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "They will not harm you," he said to Lena, "because I will not allow it." But Elias shook his head sharply. "Father, They wouldn't summon the inner sanctum unless they already planned something irreversible. He looked at Lena, and the fear in his eyes made her chest tighten. If they try to break the echo while I'm still unstable, it could kill him, the Queen finished quietly. A cold silence filled the room. Lena felt her skin prickle, her breath caught between panic and disbelief. She looked at Elias, his pale face, the faint tremor in his hands, and a strange clarity settled over her. Then we can't let them do it, she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Elias stepped toward her, his steps uneven but determined. Lena, listen. You don't owe me anything. You were dragged into this. If you want to walk away, I'll find a way to protect you, but you don't have to. She cut him off, shaking her head. I'm not walking away. Her throat burned, but she kept going. Not when they're threatening your life because I tried to help. For a moment, Elias simply stared at her, as if those words struck somewhere deeper than the bond itself. His eyes softened, glowing faintly. Adrian watched the exchange with an unreadable expression, and the Queen unfolded her hands slowly, the faintest nod of acknowledgement passing between them. We have little time, the Queen said. The council will send guards at sundown. Once Lena is inside the sanctum, they will have full authority unless the king intervenes with a counter-sanction. Adrian exhaled sharply. And if I counter-sanction, I risk open conflict with half the ruling families. They will call it treason. Elias's jaw tightened. So we let them? No, Adrian said. We find another path. Lena stepped forward, though her knees trembled. Tell me what I can do. The king studied her face for a long moment, as though searching for something even she didn't know she carried. Finally, he said, The echo formed long before tonight. It is a resonance of recognition. Two souls aligned across lifetimes. If the council tries to shatter it, the backlash will strike the one whose metamorphosis is unfinished. Elias, Lena whispered. Yes, Adrian said. But the echo also has a counterforce. Acceptance. If both participants anchor the bond willingly, the council cannot break it without risking themselves. Lena's heart pounded. What does anchor mean? Elias swallowed. It means we choose the bond freely. We acknowledge it, permanently. She blinked. Like a promise? More than a promise, the Queen said. A binding. Lena's breath hitched. Binding? You mean... Elias stepped closer, shaking his head quickly. It doesn't trap you, Lena, not like marriage or servitude. It's a shared truth, a recognition, something ancient. He looked down, exhaling shakily. But I won't ask you to do that when you barely know me. She stared at him, at the way his shoulders rose and fell unevenly, at the quiet desperation beneath his voice. The echo tugged at her chest again, not painful, just present, like something asking to be heard. She remembered the fear in his eyes on the street, the way he clung to her hand, the way his breathing steadied because she stayed. Elias, she murmured, I didn't choose any of this, but I'm not letting them kill you. He lifted his gaze slowly, hope flickering there. Are you sure? Lena nodded, though her heart hammered wildly. Tell me what to do. Adrian moved toward the marble platform. Place your hand against his, he instructed. Once you do, speak the words he tells you. The bond will anchor only if both hearts align. Lena's palm was moist with nerves as she held it out. Elias raised his trembling hand and placed it on hers. His skin was cool, but this time the contact didn't chill her. It warmed her, like something settling into place. The faint hum beneath the floor strengthened. Elias looked into her eyes. His voice was soft, rough, but steady. Repeat after me. I stand with you. Lena inhaled shakily. I stand with you. I choose this truth. I choose this truth, and I will not turn away. Lena's throat tightened, but her voice didn't break. And I will not turn away. The hum in the chamber deepened. A soft red glow spread from their joined hands, weaving upward like smoke. The Queen stepped back. Adrian watched with fierce focus. Elias spoke the final words alone, voice strained. And I accept the echo of what was, of what is, and of what will be. Lena repeated, and I accept the echo of what was, of what is, and of what will be. The glow burst outward in a soft, warm pulse that swept through the room like a silent wave. When it faded, Lena felt something deep inside her settle, like a quiet note finally reaching its chord. Elias exhaled, relief flooding his features. Adrian nodded once. The bond is anchored. A guard burst into the chamber, breathless. "Your Majesties, the council is furious. They demand Lena be surrendered immediately." Adrian's expression hardened, a slow fire rising behind his eyes. "Tell them," he said, voice cold and absolute, "that she is no longer theirs to summon." The guard hesitated. "And if they refuse?" Adrian stepped in front of Lena and Elias, crimson eyes brightening with a dangerous glow. "Then," he said, "they will answer to their king." And the chamber fell silent, the echo of those words settling like a shield around all three of them. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.